Hi students, welcome back to geology. Now that we've learned a little bit about crustal deformation, how rocks fold to accommodate stress, now we're going to look at what happens when the crust snaps. So this is what happens when rocks can no longer accommodate that stress in a ductile fashion and they break in a brittle fashion. Okay, so just a little bit of backtracking. Remember, our crustal deformation is coming from stress that is resulting in strain by the rock. Okay, so the faults are a type of brittle deformation or brittle strain as a result of the stress that is being applied. And unlike folds, faults can accommodate all three types of stresses. So faults will happen from compressional stress, which is the only way we get folds, but faults can be from compression stress, they can be from tensional stress sliding past. Okay, we have two sectors or subgroups of faults, which are dip slip faults and strike slip faults. Dip slip faults move up and down or vertically, and they are our normal and reverse faults. Strike slip faults move horizontally or side to side, and those are left and right lateral. Okay, when we look at dip slip faults specifically, because they are moving up and down or vertically, we need to look at them in cross section. And so in cross section view, it's like we cut open the earth and take a slice of it and look at it from the side. Okay, so we're going to be looking at blocks like the one here on the right, where they would have started together and there's been some sort of offset vertically. So in order to analyze this and try to figure it all out, we need to orient ourselves. We need to understand which block is moving in which direction, and we need to name the blocks. So faults aren't usually vertical. We surmise that a lot of strike slip faults are, but dip slip faults usually have some sort of dip to them, which is why they're called dip slip. So they usually are around 45 degrees, more or less, plus or minus a few here and there. And we'll talk about some specific ones that are a little bit lower angle. But for now, we're looking at around 45 degree of incline. And in order to figure out which direction things are moving, we need to orient which block is which. So in order to do that, we put a person in front of all of our faults. So when I refer to him, I call him Homer. Homer stands in front of all my faults. He stands in front of the fault line. And so there on the left, this is a picture of the Charlie Brown Road cut near Death Valley. And it has this really wonderful fault line transect that you can see has separated two layers. And there's actually a guy standing right along the fault line there for me. So I thought that was a good real world example for you. Otherwise, a lot of the way these faults were found was from mining. Mining creates a lot of cavities in the ground in which you can kind of see the inner workings of the layers of the earth. And what's really cool is it gives you an orientation as well. So if a person is standing across the fault line they're standing vertical and the fault line is inclined, wherever their head is or where maybe they would hang their lantern is the hanging wall block, and where their feet are planted is the footwall block. And those 2 points are going to be really good references for us to understand what type of fault we're looking at and what the motion is. Okay, so as we go through this, if you have not done this already, pause this video and cut out your fault block model, which is in the modules for you. And what you're going to do is you're going to work with this to move it up and down, side to side, all of that good stuff as we move through this lecture. Okay, so we're going to start with normal faults. Normal faults are from tension or pulling apart. And so the hanging wall here is going to move down. So if you want to follow along, you want to take your fault block model and move A to match B. So I'll turn that around. Oh, I dropped it, of course. You want to move A and match it with B. Okay, and take a look at what's happening there when you move it from its original position to A and B being together. So Move that around, play with it. So you're pulling it apart there. If you're on the other side, you can look at what K and J, if they go together, if you line them up horizontally, what happens there. And so when we're in the field, the first thing we want to do is identify the fault line and find what we call a marker bed. And so here you have on your model a bunch of different beds that you can use. But sometimes in the field, it's really hard to find something. So you find one marker bed that'll tell you which direction things are moving. So here we have a fault line transect, which is that red line. And then those black rock layers are our marker bed that we're going to use to tell which direction things are moving. Homer has been drawn in here for you. So he's standing in front of all your faults, standing in front of my fault. And his head is at the hanging wall block, which is on the right-hand side of this picture. And his feet are in the footwall block, which is on, sorry, I said the left-hand side is the hanging wall head block. And his feet are in the footwall block on the right-hand side. And so, as you can tell, the marker bed on the footwall block has moved up, and the marker bed on the hanging wall block has moved down. So an acronym you can use is FUN, footwall up normal. So if the footwall has moved up, it's a normal fault. Okay. Normal faults are really important because they create something called horse and Graubens. Horse and Graubens are a series of normal faults that dip toward and away from each other, and they alternate as you move through the landscape, creating horsts, which are upward pushes, upward blocks, so they're footwall blocks being pushed up, and Graubens that are down dropping, which create, those are our hanging wall blocks that create basins. Okay, so the Grauben would be a basin and the horst would be a raised ridge. So we're going to see some older rocks that are exposed at the ridges along the horsts, and then younger rocks are going to be in the Graubens. And then in the Graubens, which are going to be our valleys, they're going to be sediment filled. So it creates this really interesting landscape. And on the east side of our Sierra Nevada here in California is the start of a horst and Grauben sequence that runs through what we call the basin and range. It's literally a series of basins and ranges, or horsts and Graubens. And it starts at the Sierra Nevada frontal fault system, which is a normal fault. Okay, so this basin here is Owens Valley. The mountains in the background are the Sierra Nevada. And the Sierra Nevada is the footwall block of this fault that is being uplifted, and the Owens Valley below is the hanging wall block. All right, moving to reverse faults. These are from compressional forces, so things pushing together. So instead of taking A and matching it to B, you want to take C and match it to D. Okay, so C to D, and that will show you compression. So what's happening there? So instead of pulling it apart and creating more land on the surface, we are pushing it together and creating less land or shortening things. Okay, so here the hanging wall moves up instead of down, and you can mess with your model just to kind of get an idea of what that looks like. So in the field, again, we're going to find our marker bed, our fault transect, and then identify our hanging wall and our footwall. So here the marker bed is that black line that's just above the word footwall. And then we have the red line is our fault transect. Homer is standing in front of our fault, identifying the hanging wall block and the footwall block. And here you can see that the marker bed has been moved in the opposite direction the last one had, in which the footwall had moved down and the hanging wall had moved up. So this acronym is HER, hanging wall up reverse. So that's how you can remember the different normal and reverse faults. So reverse is hanging wall up reverse, HER, and normal is footwall up normal, which is fun and HER. All right, in California, we have an example, well, a few examples, but I'll talk about the Sierra Madre Fault Zone. This is a reverse fault in San Gabriel Mountains. It creates a lot of earthquakes, which are plotted there for you, and it's very close to the San Andreas Fault and the San Jacinto Fault in Southern California. It creates a lot of uplift along this mountain range, and so that would be the hanging wall block that is most of the San Gabriel Mountains, and then the down drop block down there is where Rancho Cucamonga is. With reverse faults, we have some that we call thrust faults. And thrust faults are reverse faults with dip angles that are less than 45 degrees. So an example is the Mount Diablo thrust fault in Contra Costa County. So this is in Bay Area. So the San Andreas fault system obviously runs through here in addition to the Hayward fault and Calaveras fault. Both of those faults move similar to the San Andreas, which is a strike slip, which we'll get to next. But the Mount Diablo thrust fault uplifts Mount Diablo, and it is in Contra Costa County. And then unfortunately with thrust faults, there's something called a blind thrust fault, which I alluded to a little bit when I talked about monoclines. Thrust faults that do not come all the way to the surface can create a lot of havoc, not just in the fact that they create folds, but they can also create earthquakes that we didn't know were possible. So this is blind thrust fault is a thrust fault, which is a less than 45 degree angle reverse fault that does not penetrate the surface. So it stays below the surface. It does create those monoclines, like those folded layers that you see there. And then it also creates earthquakes in an area that we didn't necessarily know were possible. So in the 90s, there was a major earthquake in Northridge along the Northridge blind thrust fault in San Fernando Valley in Southern California that devastated the area. We did not know, other than the San Andreas fault, that this was possible. So they can cause a lot of damage, but know that they do exist. And once an earthquake occurs or we see a monocline, that's when we start to surmise that there probably is a blind thrust fault in an area. All right, and then the last fault type we're going to talk about is strike slip faults. These, whether they're right or left lateral, move the same, but they both move horizontally. So instead of moving things up and down, they're moving side to side. So a lot of times we view these in map view instead of cross section. So the last few we talked about were all looking at the side of the earth instead of the top of the earth. So when we move our fault block model, you're going to be looking at the surface, which is the top of the block, and you'll be moving things like moving F to G or moving E up, all of that good stuff, okay? So again, these are driven by shear stress. They can be right lateral, or left lateral. And you're going to move your little block model according to what I say. So we are going to first create a right lateral strike slip fault. So if you look there on the left-hand side, we have a right lateral strike slip fault, okay? And the way that this will work is I want you to move F to match G. Do that on the camera here for you. You want to move F to match G. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to orient yourself with, let's say, the road. Okay, so you're orienting yourself with, I'm upside down, so with the road. So if you're traveling down this road and you hit the fault here, the rest of the road has disappeared. Okay, if you look at the diagram on the slides, if say you're in this red car here, you're driving down the road and you've hit the fault and the rest of the road is gone. Where did it go? How do you get to the rest of the road? Well, you need along this fault to turn right in order to get to the rest of the road, correct? So you'd make a right-hand turn and then there's your road. So if you're driving in this red car here, you drive down the road, hit the fault, turn right, there's the rest of your road. Okay, so that makes it a right lateral strike slip fault. Okay, so you're orienting yourself parallel to the feature that is offset, perpendicular to the fault, and whichever direction, right or left, is the direction of the fault. Okay, so if your fence that you're aligned parallel with is to the right, then it's a right lateral strike slip fault. If it's to the left, it's a left lateral strike slip fault. So to create a left lateral strike slip fault on your diagram here, you want to move, let's just do F to the road. That'll probably be the easiest because there's another marker on here. So if you match F to your road like that, then you have made a left lateral strike slip fault. So if you're traveling down that road again, you have to go left to get to the rest of your road. if you look at the diagram here, let's say you're in this little red car. On the right-hand side of this diagram, bottom right-hand side of the slide, you're going down this road, you hit the fault, you have to go left to get to the rest of the road. So it's a left lateral strike slip fault. And you can play around with this to kind of get your bearings and understand how things are working. But the key here is you want to make sure that you are aligning yourself parallel to the feature that's offset and perpendicular to the fault. Okay, so this is an example of the San Andreas fault. It is a right lateral strike slip fault. And I have a couple of examples here. We have a creek that's offset in the bottom left-hand side. This is Wallace Creek in the Carrizo Plains. You can walk that transect and measure how far apart this has moved since the creek has realigned itself. And if you stand parallel to that creek, perpendicular to the fault is marked with those arrows. Perpendicular to that fault, the rest of the fault is, or the rest of the creek, excuse me, is to the right. Let's use the fence. The fence is a man-made feature that's offset. If you align yourself parallel with the fence that's there in the center, and you look right and left for the rest of the fence is to your right. So it's a right lateral strike slip fault. All right, and just like we did with folds, we're going to do the same thing with faults. I want you to look at these images and try to identify which types of fault you see. I won't give you the answers in this video because it's part of your quiz. But I want you to identify what type of fault you see in A, B, and C to give you a little bit of bearing because it's kind of hard to tell. B is viewed in map view, and A and C are viewed in cross-section. All right, so to sum up and give you some final thoughts, faults are driven by brittle deformation. We have dip slip faults, which create normal and reverse faults. Normal are driven by tension. Reverse faults are driven by compression. And then we have our strike slip faults, which are right lateral and left lateral. They're both driven by shear stress. And so I want you to ponder and write in your notes, how does the type of fault tell us what kind of stress caused it? Okay, so I just kind of went over that. So write that stuff down in your notes, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.